So good evening. I am here with Michelle. She is a school teacher from Fairbanks, Alaska. But Anchorage, yes, Anchorage.
Okay.
And she's taken a leave for a few months, and she is here working in McMurdo. There is her city of occupation now, where she's here working. There's the worm herders huddling up there to keep warm. But we're about to have a tour from Michelle here at the Scott Hut, and I'll have her tell you just a second what we're going to do.
Hey everyone! Yeah, I'm working down here as a janitor actually in McMurdo so that I could get to this continent. I teach world geography, and getting to the continents is awesome. Also awesome is getting to be a tour guide at Discovery Hut, or Scott's Hut. It was built in 1902 as part of one of Scott's expeditions. He was an Antarctic explorer, and they used it for resupply. So there's a lot of stores inside there. There's a lot of original boxes that we get to see from various different expeditions. So, you ready?
I'm ready. It's going to be so cool. We had to know somebody to get through the doors here to see what's on the inside. Anybody can come walking up here and just look around, but glad we got to know Michelle, and she's got the key to let us in here. So we're going to go see what's on the inside.
Awesome. Let's check it out. So that is actually a seal. And we're going to see some more inside. Right, so we're just going to open up the hut here. Not an easy process getting to see history. Excellent. And as let me get our boot cleaner out here, and before we come in, if you guys would just scrape off your boots, please, so we can keep the hut as preserved as possible. Yeah. See if we can figure out.
Oh, man.
This is the refrigerator. Yeah. So that's where they keep the seal that they're going to eat. And you can see where they butchered the penguins. This is the cold room. It's not heated.
So, I can't even identify those.
Those are penguins.
Oh, it's a breastbone.
Yeah.
The wishbone.
The keel.
Yeah.
They have a keel just like the bird that flies. It's really strong and robust because they have to swim through their medium.
These seals are
Yeah,
looking just
they
like deer once you
Yeah,
put
kinda.
up there like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it's.
Welcome to Scott's Hut, also known as Discovery Hut, here in right near McMurdo in the Ross Sea. So this hut was built in 1902, and it was built in Australia from a design that was really excellent for keeping people cool in the outback. And so it's quite well ventilated, and it was never actually inhabited except in later years by a party that was stranded. But they never lived in here because they planned on living here, but it was very, very well ventilated, extremely cold, so they just stayed on their ship. One of the more fascinating things that a lot of us get kind of interested in are these seals right here. And so they used seals a lot for heat, especially the very last group, the group that was marooned here. Their ship went out to sea, and they lost their ship, and they were forced to live inside the hut, so they had to make do the best they could with the materials they had, and one of those materials was seals. So you can see here how they've taken butchered seals and stacked halves of seals. If you kind of get down, you can see a little better some of the layering. And you can see even still after 100 years how some of the fats are just oozing out as it's warm, like right in here. As it's warmed up, that is all freshly oozed, or I'm not sure the technical term, but It's yeah, fresh oil that fresh is the loose term. I guess it's 100+ year oil that is still oozing out of these seals. So that last party was forced to eat some seals and they used them primarily for heat. And this was their storage area for those. And you can obviously see some of the vertebrae and other bony structures of.
So they collected the oil and used them for their stoves.
Yep. And we'll see one of the stoves in the back here. And the thing I love about this are all of the different stamps on the boxes. So Scott's Antarctic expedition. We can see the British Antarctic expedition. There's some 100+-year-old biscuits. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
These are real.
Yeah. So those biscuits, nothing decomposes very quickly on this continent because it's so dry. There are no bugs that would typically be helping in the decomposition process. There's no ants to eat little bits of food or anything. So a lot of these, they were abandoned here and they just stayed here and they have not rotted or decomposed or been eaten by other little critters. So it's pretty incredible to still be able to see a lot of this stuff.
We could send some of this out to Frixel.
I think they do.
Yeah, I know.
The cabin bread looks surprisingly like that.
Now, someone was asking how much of this is original, and we can see here some parts of the floor have been restored. This is clearly a restored section of board. Back there is another section that they had to just replace. At one point in time, one of the parties needed to get into this building because there were a lot of stores in here and they knew it. People would cache their supplies here for future expeditions. And so they broke out one of these windows to get in. And then this whole half ended up filling up with snow. So when, I think it was the expedition that actually was abandoned here and had to live here, this whole side was full of snow, but there were a lot of stores and food over on this side, and so they were starving, had no idea that there was food there, to include some onions. Those are some really, really old onions. Kind of a funny little quirk. But this section really was packed in with a lot of supplies and they just didn't know it.
And is this the moss that they used to use to insulate their boots and things?
Oh, that I do not know for sure, but that certainly sounds reasonable.
Yeah, they had this moss, hay, grass stuff that they used to put inside their boots.
Oh, really?
To insulate it and keep their feet dry.
Really?
But that could be it, I don't know. It looks kind of like grass and moss to me.
It seems reasonable.
And look, BA, British Antarctic Expedition. Shore party.
Uh-huh.
Getting kicked off the boat.
So that's the British.
Another thing that's kind of interesting is this sledging harness. So some of the parties, the way that they would try and make it across the continent was to put a bunch of supplies on a sled. They called it a sledge, and do man hauling. So this section would go around the person's body. This would tie onto the sledge, and they literally would drag a lot of their supplies across the continent with them. And so this is an example of what one of those looked like.
It's comfortable to be wearing for months at a time.
Looks extremely uncomfortable, I would have to agree. I would have to agree. And yeah, reading a lot of these labels are just kind of fascinating. The different supplies that they chose as important.
And this is some kind of a stove here? Looks like
Which
charcoal or something in there. What is it? What's in that?
I don't know what's in it. Whoops.
That'd be coal clinkers? Something.
I don't know what's in, but that definitely looks sort of like a stove.
If you're a geologist, you'd taste it.
not sure if these are like, they sort of look like they might have been fuel cans
they
of
look
some
like fuel
sort.
cans.
Mm-hmm. So, funny question. What did everyone bring as their luxury item down here? Everyone brings something. What'd you guys bring?
Oh, what did I bring?
Yeah, for your little splurge, your luxury item.
Photo album
Photo
with
album.
family
Oh.
pictures, the paper pictures.
Paper pictures of your family. Yeah,
Yep.
a nice one. Anyone else have luxury items they brought? I brought my pillow because I wanted to have my own comfortable pillow.
Nice.
Yeah.
I brought a good book.
You brought a good book. Those luxury items that
Yeah.
are not necessary for survival, but they certainly make life a little more interesting. So this over here looks to me like someone's luxury item. A nice little beach chair. I have no idea what beach they thought they were going to be sitting on. Or maybe just a comfortable chair, but that was important to someone. Kind of interesting to see. You know, old artifacts are sometimes just what we think would be fun and comfortable. Oh.
What are these bags of
And-
things in this box?
Inside those bags,
Yeah.
I am not certain.
Open one.
It looks like that one's. It looks like this full of some kind of powder. Like this is the bag is torn open here. Like maybe it's full
They're-
of
they're
cornmeal
old.
or flour. Or
They're old world
There was
packs,
a thing
Brian.
inside of
they're not soil samples. Like it's kind of white. Well, so it's a lamp
This
oil
says
box,
lamp oil,
but they're using it to store something.
Clearly something else. I don't know. Oh yeah, I see that little tear that you're talking about. I don't know.
For sack lunches for the day's work.
Well,
Yeah.
they used to make this stuff called whoosh, and it was like
Whoosh, yeah.
cocoa and goo, and they would mix it with boiling water. And I wonder if, like, before they go out, they just put them in these convenient, like we use Ziploc bags or whatever. I wonder if they just,
Oh.
there's like, okay, here's one, because they probably weighed them all out.
Yeah.
and-
So everyone got their ration. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know.
Huh. Seems reasonable because they do look like they would be sort of watertight, like they look almost a little oiled or something.
Yeah.
So maybe. I don't know. That's a good guess. Yeah.
Ladle.
Yep. Improvised. Another portion of a sledging harness. And a saw. There's an axe in back. Yeah. It is sort of interesting because yes, there's cabin biscuits, and then back here are special dog biscuits. Like for use on voyage. I don't know what makes special dog biscuits versus regular dog biscuits, but that was part of the National Antarctic Expedition.
That's when you're a really good boy. You get
I
one of
guess,
those.
I guess. But all these variety of biscuits are sort of Kinda
those are
fascinating.
Special whole meal biscuits.
mm-hmm. Mixing it up with the biscuit styles. That's my dog's name is Biscuit actually. And these look like there's some ties to a sledge or some sledge parts of some sort.
Floors and walls, like
Yeah.
bunks. This must be where the bunks were, huh?
Hmm.
You know where this is like how many nights they were fighting with each other or something? What if the bunks? I mean, what's gone? They go this way out into the room. They must have, huh?
You know, I've been curious about that myself because when they built this originally, they did intend to sleep in it. So they must have had something, except they never did use it for sleeping. So maybe they just took that wood and burned it or something. I'm not sure. But all the other huts have like sleeping bunks and, built-in type stuff. Back here though is where the party that was stranded, where they spent a winter. They spent an Antarctic winter back here, and like I was describing before we came out here, they did make some attempts at making this room smaller. You can see like all the canvas that they've put up, and they used some of the supply boxes to help make a smaller room to try to keep it a little warmer and preserve as much heat as they could. And one thing I find interesting back here is you can really just see the soot and that seal blubber hanging on everything. It's really, really prevalent back here. Like even on some of these bricks in the back. Those are quite coated with seal oil. Flashlight. I'm good with a flashlight.
Oh, man.
So they would come here and melt out all this blubber and all this stuff and then walk all the way back to Royd's?
For the people that stayed here, the expedition where their ship was lost.
Oh, they're the ones that made the mess, probably. Huh?
Yeah, yeah. They're the ones that were actually using all of this. And so, no, they were not walking back and forth to Royd's. They were in survival mode. So if you get in a couple of these, you can really see that it's definitely dried out seal blubber.
So you think that was like stir fry, or were they just getting the oil out?
I'm not 100%. It's all guessing, but this looks to me like they were probably rendering the oil, or maybe this is stuff that they intended on eating. That could be possible as well, but you can really see how they've chunked it up into
Like
smaller
bacon
bits. So
rinds.
maybe, yeah, so maybe that helps get the oil out.
Someone burn their oatmeal?
The stove doesn't look terribly efficient either, though. Like it's even for the day, can only imagine there is more efficient technology. It's just piped straight up, and
Any idea who belonged to these clothes here?
no, but a lot of them are clearly repairs, hand stitched. Like they didn't have clothes. When their ship blew out to sea, they literally had what was on their back, and so they made not material you would normally make clothes from. And these are, not sure, maybe some boots, something like that. Kind of a little hard to tell. And so 10 men spent a winter back here.
Clothes?
Yep, some gloves. Yeah, it's a long winter. It's a long winter.
Talk about man.
How many months?
Yeah. Let me look that up on the sheet. It's
Okay.
on
It's
the
on the
I think
sheet.
it's on that
Yeah,
sheet,
okay.
yeah. So something that is pretty special is right here behind you, Kevin, and behind you, Tasha, actually. And if we get some good flashlights going on the wall, we can see where, like, Wild has written his name on there. That one's super easy to see.
Oh wow.
Yep. We can see inscriptions of, like, the Trans-Antarctic Expedition,
Wow.
January 21st, 1915. There's a few other names that are a little hard to make out, but it's kind of interesting just to see this. People that have been taking pictures have been getting the best pictures with flash.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. That seems to be even better than holding a flashlight onto it. So I'll back up a little bit. And feel free to take some pictures. This room, and as it warmed up, all of a sudden these amber color drips started. And I was like, wow, this thing is still actively dripping. And you can even kind of see like some of its drip spots. So even 100 years ago, here's where they've, or 100 years after, they were actually using this hut. This seal that was hung there is still dripping. Just kind of blows my mind. Just all sorts of neat stuff. You guys weren't here when the McMurdo Museum was out, were you? No. Oh, it was so neat. I guess it must have been the first half of the season. The galley, or in the galley, there was a big McMurdo Museum, and artifacts from all sorts of different work centers were put out on the table.
spend the winter here. Couldn't imagine what that would have felt like. Long 6 months. But it sounds like they survived and were grateful for what they had. On the way home, that is a floating dock. It's a big chunk of ice they just put dirt on, and the ships will dock onto that floating chunk of ice. It looks like it's made of asphalt, but it's just ice with a little bit of this volcanic rock put on it. Pretty amazing. It's like about 15 feet thick. So plenty big enough to hold the ship when it comes in on board here to shore. So, all right, I'm gonna put this camera away, get my gloves back on, so I can get warmed up. A little chilly.